Mueve la cabeza de arriba para abajo. Sí, así como si estuviéramos hablando. No, así no, Fabio, así no.
Hola a todos, el día de hoy voy a traer el evento de fiesta magistral en Fortnite en la gran pantalla de We the People. Y bueno, pues estaba jugando con algunos compañeros que tengo ahí que están conectados, llamados Magiardos y Pilo de Pilo 220. Y bueno, pues tuvieron un montón de interrupciones de parte del internet de Pilo y también del primo de Magiardos y no se pudo ver el evento completo por una interrupción que hubo en fiesta magistral también ahí, que nos cambió de grupo justo cuando estaba terminando la película y de ahí al final todos se fueron porque se aburrieron y ya no querían volver a ver la película y me quedé solo y pues tuvo paz y tranquilidad. Ojalá que no se repita esto mañana en la gran pantalla, recemos que no, por favor. Si están viendo esto, desde aquí les pido que no molesten a la gente de fiesta magistral. No les han hecho nada, no les han molestado, no sean gilitondos, por favor. Estarían... Hola a todos, el día de hoy voy a traer el evento de fiesta magistral en Fortnite en la gran pantalla de We the People. Y bueno, pues estaba jugando con algunos compañeros que tengo ahí que están conectados, llamados Magiardos y Pilo de Pilo 220. Y bueno, pues tuvieron un montón de interrupciones de parte del internet de Pilo y también del primo de Magiardos y no se pudo ver el evento completo por una interrupción que hubo en fiesta magistral también ahí, que nos cambió de grupo justo cuando estaba terminando la película y de ahí al final todos se fueron porque se aburrieron y ya no querían volver a ver la película y me quedé solo y pues hubo paz y tranquilidad. Ojalá que no se repita esto mañana en la gran pantalla, recemos que no, por favor. Si están viendo esto, desde aquí les pido que no molesten a la gente de fiesta magistral. No les han hecho nada, no les han molestado, no sean gilitondos, por favor. Le estarían haciendo un gran favor a mí y a un montón de personas más que quieren ver tranquilos el evento, pero por culpa de sus gilipendez pues no pueden. Y bueno, pues ahora sí ya les digo con el gameplay.
Ya, a ver, quiero que me digan un número aleatorio del 1 al 39.
Salte, quiero poner una skin exclusiva.
Chicos, díganme un número aleatorio del 1 al 39.
¿Qué skin exclusiva tengo?
A ver, Pilot, dime un número del 1 al 50.
26.
Que no me quiero poner.
A ver, ya. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
No, me quedo con el icone,
No, ya 23. Aquí está. Ya está. Me tocó el lujo.
What? Bro, aquí hay otro deriva,
Mira, ahora aquí hay un montón de...
¿Cuántos derivas hay?
¿Ves, Fabio?
Los derivas.
Bro, what the fuck, bro, parece que Pilo le dio lag, bro. A Pilo le dio lag. Fabio, ven, mira esta pieza gráfica.
¿Qué rayos?
Mira,
Estoy viendo que
es una
esta
pieza
aquí
gráfica.
tiene la cabeza negra, pero
Este era un amor entre dos kits, bro. Este era una pieza gráfica.
Oye, uno
Mira.
es negro y el otro es blanco, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Porque yo me voy a poner también.
Racista.
Rarito.
Así es el color.
Rarito, bro, rarito.
Te voy a
Eres un
poner-
rarito.
¡Ey! No he hecho un play, bro.
Banana. Espera, voy a ponerme en la Galaxy otra vez.
Sí, ponte la galaxia, Fabio.
Sí, voy a ponerme en la Galaxy.
Oh, estoy rompiendo el control, bro. Estoy rompiendo el control. Ayuda, por favor, que estoy rompiendo el control.
Oye,
Ayuda, que
Pilot,
estoy
¿cuánto
rompiendo
falta
el
para que comience el
control.
evento?
Ayuda, que se me rompe el...
Bro, Pilot,
Ayuda,
¿cuánto
que se
falta para que comience el evento?
Faltan 7 minutos.
Estoy apretando full la letra.
Y ya te minutos para que comience el evento. Me cago en el olito del árbol.
Apreté demasiado el control. Bro, what the fuck, ¿por qué
Oye, bro,
nadie-
estoy destruyendo el control, bro. Estoy destruyendo el control. El
Ah,
control
ya,
del
mejor
pepino después de esto, bro.
creo que me voy a comprar un teclado Duki para que me traigan teclas de cambio.
Oye, sí, mira, bro, el
No,
control es el que no solo por esta cosa, bro.
Bro, what the fuck?
Bro, después el control se va a ir al cheto.
Bro.
¿Sabes qué? Me voy a poner una skin llamada enmascarado.
Bro. Ah, mira cómo giro Fabio.
A ver,
Fabio, todo mi skin está girando.
sí, todo tu quien está girando.
Mira, estoy girando mi cara.
No está girando nada. A ver, miren mi cara, miren mi cuerpo, miren mi cuerpo, miren. ¿Quieren ver un tornado? Pues acá tienen
A
tornado.
ver, ¿dónde está? Pero. ¿Sabes qué, Pilot? Esto sí es un tornado.
A ver. Los veo lagueados.
¡Oh! Se me trabó se me atrapó la cuerda del ratón. Se me
Signo
trabó.
universal de la paz, signo universal de la paz.
O sea, au, me siento como si me hubiera clavado en el dedo algo. Pero en realidad no me.
¿En serio recién pasó un minuto?
¿Qué?
Thinking the badge is better than having some heart. Okay, look now, look how they running.
Mira
They
el
beating white people down just to show us what's coming. Or to show us we nothing. Or to show us we only welcome when singing or balling. You shut up and dribble. Word.
Evento 10 de 10. Nice.
Hey everybody, I'm Carrie Champion. Welcome to We the People. So today we are having a very candid conversation with athletes and artists who want to make sure that you use your voice to vote. Voting is your voice. So we have so many different issues that have happened in this country. It's really, truly unprecedented time. So I'm looking forward to these conversations. I think you'll be educated as well as entertained, but most importantly informed. We have morethanavote.org, whenweallvote.org, and fairfight.com. Those resources are imperative as we try to change.
Todos están
Pero ya comenzó esto yo aquí como el Lolito.
Pero no veo nada.
Yo también no veo nada. ¿Qué es esto de
There's no way that we can talk about hip hop. Or even the fact that we want to talk about activism, black voter suppression, without bringing in this guy straight from Port Arthur, Texas. We are talking about Bumby. He is an activist, a scholar, and an all-around gentleman. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. But I don't want to start heavy, but I guess I have to, because that's where we are in the world today. It's heavy as hell. And when you think about what needs to happen in this country in terms of change, what's the first thing that
yo no lo puedo ver.
Equality. That's pretty much the first thing that comes to mind, right?
Oye, yo no lo veo.
Need to be seen as equals in this world. You know, we had to fight just to be recognized as a full citizen in this country and not 3/5.
The world is now seeing what we've known for so long in the culture and in the community. The one way that we can fight is obviously voting. Talk to me about what voting means to
no lo
you.
puedo
I
ver,
hear
me
people all
parece
the
que
time talking
está
about one
todo.
vote doesn't matter and that voting doesn't make a difference. If that's true, why do they work so hard to suppress the black vote? Because they understand the power of the vote. And so it's time that black people collectively also understand the power of their vote. And not just on a national level, because a lot of times we only have this conversation every 4 years. People need to be very much involved in their local politics. They need to understand who their elected officials are, where they stand on issues that affect you. You need to use your vote to either support the ones that care about you and your condition, or to elect people who do. A newer initiative that we're dealing with is educating felons, right? So in the state of Texas, if you're a felon, right, if you've been to jail or to prison, but you're no longer on probation or parole, you have the right to register to vote. Another thing that was just brought to my attention, there's an initiative called Orange, which is happening not just in Houston, but all over the country. If you're in jail currently during pretrial, but you have not been convicted, like you're still in jail waiting for your day in court, you are still eligible to vote.
And you said something so key. They work so hard to hope that we stay uninformed, but more importantly, to suppress the black vote. If you could do one thing with this message that we're trying to send today about how important voting is, what type of images would you like our people to understand and see when they go to these polls and vote, or when they cast their ballots?
I think the images that we've all seen, you know what I'm saying, for decades in this country, if not centuries in this country, we've seen black people oppressed, we've seen black people attacked. So every time you look back and you see those old black and white images of people of color being attacked by dogs and people of color being sprayed with hoses. That's what they were fighting for. Back then, they were just fighting for a chance to
Bro,
vote.
yo tengo
People
un
like
por
Martin
aquí
Luther
que
King
quiero mostrar
Jr.,
su
people
cara.
like Malcolm X, these people died to help us be in a position to have the power that we have now, which is to be able to cast a vote and make a decision about the people that have controls over our lives. So, I mean, if you in your own community need a reason to vote, look at a person like George Floyd. If the people in your city are not open to police reform, are not open to having a conversation about defunding the police, are not open to issues concerning economic
Bro,
equality,
aquí
judicial
tengo otro
equality,
en
and racial
Deadpool que quiero
equality,
mostrar su
right?
cara,
If
bro.
they're scared to say Black Lives Matter, you have the power to put people in those positions who do believe that Black Lives Matter, who do
¿Cómo que
believe in
grupo
racial
avanzado
equality, economic
30M?
equality, judicial
Pero
equality,
sí, menos
right?
porque tú ves
Who
amistad
see
aquí
us
como
as human
si nada,
beings.
¿no?
And if the people in
¿Qué,
your
Fabio?
community don't
Que
feel
me
that
están
way,
enviando solicitudes
vote
de
them
amistad
out.
acá.
It's that
Que
simple. It's just vote them out. We don't
¿En
have enough
serio,
time
Fabio?
to sit around and hope that
Creo
people
que,
change their
creo que
minds.
Yeah,
piensan
Bubby,
que
you
eres
point out
agresivo.
something so important. We have the power, and that is in our vote, and
A
that is with our
Gref le
voice,
gusta
and
No,
that's
no,
a
Fabio,
whole
quédate
nother
con la
voice.
skin, quédate con la
I
skin.
think of
Ya,
where
A ver
we
si
are
te
right
siguen
now.
mandando.
People say this is a particular
pero estoy
moment, but
empezando
it
a
is a
creer que sí,
movement.
porque hay mucha
Not just a
gente.
moment, it is a movement.
Porque yo mato aquí viendo por
Why, in your opinion, was it George Floyd's death? Why was that the chosen brutality for people to say, oh my God, Black people are still oppressed in this country, and it is not fair?
I think it's twofold, Carrie. In so many different encounters between people of color and the police, there simply is no proof of what happened in the interaction. And so what happens is in a court of law, it tends to lean towards the policeman's point of view, right? In this case, we saw very clearly what happened. I think the other thing is due to the fact that everyone was at home, basically, during this time period in relation to the coronavirus, you couldn't avoid it.
tengo un caballero
Right? It
último
was on
aquí al
every
lado de
television
mí.
station. It was on every social media platform. Everywhere you turn, you were constantly hit upside the head with this message. You see in the interaction that this man did nothing to
Caballero
deserve
última.
what happened.
That's right. So well said, because if you think about it, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't worth it, and he didn't have to lose his life. I think that you touched on something that a lot of people talk about, and that is now defunding the police. That has been such a huge conversation, but
Ali
there's so many
Salazar,
misconceptions
no
around
Epic,
defunding and
Nenes
dismantling.
Killer,
If you will, educate the audience.
All right,
Papa
so
Rex,
most people, when they hear the term defund the police, they tend to think of, oh, they're going to take away our
The
police department.
Orange,
Nothing could be further from the point.
Adam
Defunding the police
Johnson,
means that in certain
Apple
communities, even
Potato,
in Houston,
Ninja
for example,
Wolf, what
we had
the
over $1
fuck?
billion allocated to our police force. Now, what is that money being used
Bro, un
for?
tipo se
Some of
puso
that
ahí
money
arriba.
tends to be allocated towards riot shields,
La
right?
Roca.
Pepper spray,
Bro,
right?
bro,
That
se
kind of
puso ahí
thing.
arriba,
That's
un tipo.
only used
Pantalla.
against the people that fund this budget.
What the fuck?
Right, so why would the people want to
¿Sabes cómo
supply
se
the
sube
police with
arriba
the
la
means to
pantalla,
oppress
verdad?
them? If the police are
Subiendo.
concerned about the situation in certain communities with a higher crime
A
rate,
ver, ya,
well,
¿cómo me
higher
subo?
crime rates tend to happen
Ah,
in
ya sé
communities
cómo me
where
puedo subir.
there's not
A ver, ya, hoy voy a intentar
there's not
subirme allá arriba.
employment opportunities, right? There's not a lot of social services, and people are going to do what they need to do
Ah,
to
quiero
take care
que
of themselves and their
conseguir,
families.
ay.
When the community has more opportunities for employment, more opportunities for upward mobility, then they tend to be a less of a strain on the government.
No, no
They
lo
tend to
logré.
have a lower crime rate, and because of that, we'll
¿Qué
have
hace?
less need for the police in those communities.
Bro,
You
Bro,
are
what
passionate
Hola.
about so many
Hola.
different
Hola.
things in terms of
Hola.
making sure
What?
that we are holding our leaders accountable. Talk to me about some of the other projects
Hola.
that you're working on.
Well, right now, obviously, being a part of More Than a Vote is essential. We're dealing with primaries in this country right now. And we just want to educate people, we want to inform people, because people are tired,
¿Sabes qué?
they're
Voy
angry,
a poner
they're
a Oli en toda
concerned,
la
and they
pantalla.
want
Voy a
information
¿Cómo
and they
que
want
ahora?
¡Oh, su madre!
And so we want to make sure that we give them the right information and lead them in the right direction.
Fuck.
And we thank
Oye,
the
pones
people
a
that do
Oli
not
al
look like
frente
us
de
for
todos
standing with
así,
us right now,
y
because it's
todo el
very
mundo.
important that people
Hay un
aren't
Oli que me quiere buscar. No.
A ver, espera. Ah, mira, se me ocurre una idea. Voy
Está
a
preparado
poner
para
banana.
un Oli en sí.
Pero
Voy a
voy
poner
a...
para no para molestar. ¡Ah! Se me
¿Vale?
quitó. No, bro.
change in their
Bro, se me
community.
ah, ya.
People need to know about how
Fabio,
their
que
city
no te van a
council
seguir mandando
runs. They need to
solicitud de
know that they
amistad,
have
Fabio. Vuélvete a
the
poner
ability to
tu
speak when city council
skin
meets,
galaxia.
to let them know that that's not the way that
No,
they
no,
think
no,
their city needs to be run.
No te la
Those are
pones.
not the places that they feel the money of their
And
community needs to be
Pon
allocated.
una y pon el Oli al frente de mi cara, ¿vale? No, pero no al frente de mi cara, sino así como que se note en
They can
pantalla.
run for positions. Like, people act like they leave it up to somebody else. If you're upset, it's not hard to get on the school board. It's not hard to be a part of the city council. It really isn't. And depending on how small your town is, you can be
pediria, no,
It's the
vamos a
power
hacer la
is with the
revolución.
people, and we need to
Ya
just
lo,
know
ya
that
lo,
that's
ya lo
happening.
trae.
Absolutely. And it's
Ya lo,
always
ya
been
lo,
with the
ya
people.
lo
You know, if you look
trae.
at Trayvon Martin's mother, Sabrina Fulton, right?
Hola.
She felt that there was a system of racism and system
No,
of oppression
estoy viendo
that
el
led to her
pecho
son's
ese de
death.
Letita la
And so what
banana.
did she do? She ran for city council and she's
Ya lo
elected city
trae.
council. Our own former
Ya
president,
lo
44,
trae.
Barack Obama, right? Started in the community as an activist, ran
Shit.
for an elected position, became senator, ran for another elected position, and became
¿Me
president
dejas
of
el
the United
bust?
States. So don't think that you can't make a
Sí, sí,
difference.
sí.
You know what I'm saying? You
Sí,
don't
sí,
need
sí, sí.
a lot of money. You don't
Era broma. ¿Cuánto dura esta cosa?
De verdad es que no lo sé.
Dura...
Espera, voy a seguir con la galaxia. Ahí está, la galaxia. Otra vez lo perdí. No.
I'm good.
Ah,
I'm
ya
good.
está.
I have a
Un
very
B. ¿Se apagó? ¿Se apagó?
¿Qué falo?
¿Se apagó la tele esta?
and they're proud of
Ah,
me right
no.
now. You know
Se apagó la tele esta otra vez.
Yo la veo normal.
Se está apagando la tele.
what you're doing. You have everything you need to go out there and fight the good fight. And for those that don't, there's a community of people here to help you. So you can go to places like morethanavote.org. There are many different places that will encourage you, inform you, and they will put you with groups of people that feel like you, that are ready to take action. So no one has to go about this alone if they want to do it.
Yeah, we're stronger together. People have been saying it, but that has much more meaning now that we are in our movement, not just this moment. Bambi, it has been an education, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Keep fighting the good fight.
Keep up the good fight.
Hola.
Hola, me llamo Elquilas y no sé.
Black Lives
Yeah.
So our next guest, I have to
Actriz
admit, I'm a
comedian.
fan, but there are so many different people that we could talk to, and I thought it was so imperative that we speak with her. You know her as Molly on the huge, successful show Insecure, HBO's Insecure. She also has a comedy special highlighting her Nigerian roots, and she's an amazing podcaster. Let's welcome in Yvonne Orji, everyone. You have such a beautiful way of making things funny, giving us our medicine with some candy, right? The humor and the healing. You bring all of that to your space. And right now, as you look across this country and how everyone is so broken and so upset, if it's not social injustice, it's the pandemic, it's depression, it's unemployment, the list goes on and on. How are you doing, quite frankly?
You know, I'm rediscovering self in a way that is hard, but necessary. That will lead to ultimate joy.
A mí
I
ni
know
me
it sounds
carga, no sé qué
like
hacer.
a lot, but
Creo que le voy a dar simplemente al TF4.
I personally think that God put all of us
Yo
on
puedo
a
ver el
global
video,
timeout.
pero...
Like we just,
No,
you
les
know,
dio al
America
F4.
hasn't done
Les
as
dio al
good as
F4.
other people when it comes to timeouts because
¿Qué
everyone
Pilo?
else is out playing at recess,
¿Cómo así?
and we're still in the principal's office.
Ya no parece, ya no
wishing
parece.
we could come out.
Oye,
But
¿verdad?
I think
Pilo le
that
dio al
if we
F4.
settle into the timeout and
Pilo le
really
dio
learn the
al
lesson that we're supposed to
F4.
learn from
No.
the season, I think
Pilot,
we'll
a ver,
emerge better.
no.
We'll learn how to
Pilot,
play well with others
Pilot.
in more ways than one. And so
Pilot
personally, I'm
abandonó.
taking this time
Espera.
to learn me in a new way. I feel like I'm being
Pilot
ushered into a new
abandonó.
season, and I'm getting
Mira,
still.
tengo 3
Because
personas
sometimes the
aquí.
busy
Tengo 3. No, Pilot abandonó.
confounds
Le dio el
the work
F4.
that we're supposed to actually be doing.
Pilot
You know, we're busy
abandonó.
doing
A
other
ver,
stuff,
ya
but we got work
hay que
that
seguir
we need to
viendo
do on the inside, and
cosa.
I'm leaning into it. I'm like, dang, I thought I was gonna be able to rest like everybody else, and you guys like, nah, we got work to do.
You know what? And I think that's what everybody is saying about 2020. It's demanding that we be better. And you said it's a global timeout. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's like everyone sit down, be humble, to quote the great prophet Kendrick Lamar. But like, no, seriously, sit down and let's reevaluate some things. Let us unearth and shake up the things that we have been trying to hide within ourselves, within our nation. I think America is going through an unraveling right now, a much needed, a much necessary one. And I think all eyes on us, right? There is no, oh, I was on the subway for an hour, so I didn't miss that thing that happened. No, everybody was home. Everybody, was watching when George Floyd died, and everybody, no one could hide it. Everyone was watching when Amy Cooper called the cops. Like, this is a time where it's like, oh, we can't pretend it away. We can't excuse it away. No. It's a global timeout. Sit down, watch, and let's learn. And globally, it's like, hey, we were going business as usual, but it ain't usual no more. Like that's old. Anytime change occurs, it's very uncomfortable. And so right now we're sitting with we're getting we're getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
The minorities, we've been comfortable with being uncomfortable because that to me explains just the existence for whatever we want to do, how we break into our careers, how we live our lives, how we find ourselves one of the few,
Bro,
one
no,
of the
volvemos
first.
al colegio
And that's a lonely road.
exacto.
When you look at, and when you talk about this global timeout,
Exactamente, volvemos el lunes, porque
everyone had to pay attention to George Floyd. How is that helping us as a people, as a country during our global timeout?
I think, well, one, we're not minorities, Carrie. You already know it. It's like these labels that they put on us. It's like the same way of saying like black on black violence. Also, there's no white on white violence. It's branding.
Yeah,
right. It's all branding.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like white people kill white people every
favor,
single
¿de
day.
qué te
So no,
ríes?
there is no black on black
Yo no me
violence.
río.
And if you say black on black violence, well then let's
Te vas a
brand
reír.
white on white violence.
Ya
Like
cállate.
I watch Investigation Discovery. Ain't too many of us being featured.
Qué risa, ¿eh?
So, and you know, I just even like, but to answer your question, what does that do? I think what everyone expected is what has happened in the past when the world was still open, right? In that, okay, you had everyone from Trayvon Martin to Castillo to Sandra Bland, you had all of these lives lost, and Black people made some noise. You know, we rioted. We got out in the streets, we started the Black Lives Matter movement, all of those things. And then white people kind of just like, oh, let's give them something. And then it's just like, is it over? It's like Oscars so black. Okay, good. We gave some Oscars. Are we good now? Like, are we even? You know, and it's just like, oh no. This is not about like a Band-Aid. It's like, yo, we might have to amputate the leg a little bit. But it's all right because by amputating the leg, we're gonna save the body. And so I think that's what's happening now. Like America is realizing like, oh, Black people aren't just making a little bit of noise. Like the protests are still out. The conversations are still being had. The change is still being demanded. And I think they're seeing, oh, this is not going away. And no, it's not, because we need systematic change.
What a beautiful way to explore what is happening and describe our country. We might have to amputate the leg, but that's to save the body. That's what's happening right now. That's beautiful, Yvonne. And to that end, I have to ask you this, because the way that we do that, we use our voice. And our voice right now in this world, in this country, is our vote. And everyone talks about voting and how important it is, but I feel like more than ever we understand that it's not just about voting every 4 years for the man in office. It's about your local elections. It's about the mayor. It is about the district attorney, the people who have the power to bring charges against police if police brutality is an issue in your community. If you care about your school district, you can run for the school board. I ask this of you, right? Your parents are from Nigeria. You are Nigerian. You talk about that very lovingly. What does voting mean for you?
You know, I think voting is power. I remember, you know, I became a naturalized citizen back in the 90s when, because I was still a minor, my mom naturalized, and so we were able to do it under her. And just even that power of like, we are American citizens and all the access that we have by being citizens, one of those accesses and those access to power being voting, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because not only do we have the opportunity to be in this country, but now we can be of the country. We can be of the system. We can be of the rules. We can be of what it actually is for. But I think going back to your earlier comment about just the setup of systems.
No, es que ella me quería preparar una pizza con masa.
Either it's schools or whatever it is. Pero papá, ¿puedes separarme dos, por favor? But for some reason, we do not, and give them all the raises. I know too many parents who are like, this child of mine, I do love them, but hey.
Maxi, mira, Maxi, tengo que cambiarme la skin, pero es que me están persiguiendo.
¿Qué era,
Me están persiguiendo, bro, me están persiguiendo.
Mi cabeza. ¿Cuántos se están persiguiendo?
5 personas, bro, me están persiguiendo.
Fabio, acércate a mí, a ver si tú eres gente.
Bro, qué asco,
when you think of voter suppression in this country, what does it look
¿Qué
like?
hago, bro? ¿Qué hago?
It's the systems. When we talk about
Fabio,
voter
ven
suppression,
conmigo,
we're
ven
talking
donde
about
estoy yo, ven donde estoy
¿Dónde
yo.
estás?
It's
Ya,
all the
ya.
systems that set
La
up.
pantalla
And
esta, la
we've
gran pantalla.
Ya,
normalized,
pero es que mira.
okay, maybe
Ah,
your
ya.
job will give you a half day,
Ya,
or
si quieres quedar
maybe,
conmigo,
Estoy en
ya.
el
you'll
escenario,
be able
yo
to
estoy en
get
la
this
gran pantalla.
luxury. It shouldn't be a luxury. It should be built into the
Y ahora
system. It
sí,
should be
cállate,
built into the
cállate.
fabric of how we vote. But maybe you'll be able to get this luxury in order to enable you to go vote.
Bro,
Think
Fabio,
about
aquí hay otro
everything,
tipo que tiene la skin Galaxy.
disenfranchised,
¿En dónde?
marginalized,
En la gran pantalla.
black person has to endure in a day. So in a day, you need to get to
¿Qué
work.
parte?
If something happens to your car,
Ven acá, aquí
something
donde
happens
estoy,
to your
aquí donde
child
estoy, en la
care,
gran
something
pantalla.
happens
Claro,
to,
te lo he
there's
explicado.
so many factors
No hay
along the
nadie.
way that can send you into a tailspin as
Se ha
an
bugueado, bro,
American.
se ha
And then you
bugueado, se
add
ha
on
bugueado.
Ah,
as a
no,
person
este
of
es el
color.
Fabio, este es el
If
Fabio.
you're just trying to get to vote and you
Pero
already
yo no
have
tengo
to
la
go
skin
through
Galaxy.
all of these hurdles and
Por
hoops
eso,
in
tienes
your
la skin
everyday
esa
life,
de...
Legendary.
imagine the
Ya,
one
faltan 15
day
minutos
when
para
your
que termine.
voice really
Voy a poner la
is
skin
supposed to
Galaxy,
matter the
quiero
most
ver
in
cómo
the
te
country.
persiguen.
But then you also see
Y después
all
te
the
la vuelves a
times
cambiar,
you try
Fabio.
to have your voice matter, and
Póntela,
then it's
póntela,
been
póntela.
Ya.
shut down,
Ya, por última vez
repressed,
está ahí.
told it doesn't matter,
Y hay que
and
seguir
then
viendo
you're kind
esto.
of like, what's the point?
How do we keep
Ya, última vez, Maxi, ya. Última vez y de ahí ya me pongo a ver la película bien. Mira. Si tengo suerte para dejar de perseguirme.
The fault.
Ya solo ella te
Like,
está
hope
persiguiendo en
is
ese
used in
momento.
our DNA.
Nadie
Like,
me
you
está
feel like,
persiguiendo, nadie.
like if we haven't been,
Bernardo,
if we
Bernardo.
haven't been broken now,
voy a ir
through,
contigo, Maxi,
be
y
it
me
through
quedo acá.
slavery,
Aquí.
through
Give it to
capitalism,
me.
Yo lo
Give it to
traigo.
me.
colonization, through
Yo lo traigo.
segregation,
Con mi ejército milenario vamos a hacer
the
la
history of black people
revolución.
in this country is, at
Yo lo
one point,
traigo.
we were 3/5
Yo lo traigo. Con mi ejército
That's it.
milenario
That
vamos a
was a
hacer
written
la
law. And look
revolución.
at us now. We
No,
are
bro.
whole. We are black girl magic. We are black boy
Ya lo,
joy.
ya lo,
We
ya lo
are, you know what I'm
traigo.
saying?
Con tu
What
ejército
I think
siberiano
of
vas a
giving us
hacer
hope,
la
right?
revolución.
We're making a lot of people nervous right now, Carrie. We're making a lot of people
man.
nervous right now
No
because
se me
they're
antoja
like,
ahorita algo de
dang,
chocolate.
we
Esto
put
me
all
está
these
molestando.
obstacles
Porque
in their way,
conmigo ya está de
and
chocolate y
these
me estoy
jokers are
molestando un poquito de
resilient.
cabeza.
But that should give us hope. That should give us hope
Maxi,
that,
por
like,
favor,
we
cállate.
can't stop, won't stop. I mean, I went to the school of Diddy. You know what I'm saying? Hashtag, bye bye, bye bye.
Es
Harlem
full
shaking right
chocolate.
now. We can't stop.
No tiene
won't
nada de
stop.
crema ni
And
nada.
I think
verdad.
that's our motto. We can't stop voting and we won't stop voting. We can't stop marching and we won't stop marching. We can't stop thriving and we won't stop thriving.
To that end, because you led me directly there, I've been asking everyone who's appeared on this platform, what does
Ustedes son mi
activism
kame,
look like?
kame,
I
ka.
feel like back in the day, we had an idea.
yo lo
Yes,
traigo.
it is marching. Yes,
Juan,
it is
ya que agarraste
protesting.
esa
Yes, it
cultura,
is
échate el
speaking out
puño en la
against
mano,
things
¿ya?
that we feel
Ay,
are
ejército
not
quisiera.
unjust. But talk to me about what activism looks like for Yvonne Orji.
Listen, activism, I think the beauty of activism
¿Otra vez?
is that it has many faces, right? You're going to have the people.
Es que en serio, bro.
You know
Esto
what?
es.
Martin
Sí,
Luther
Fabio,
King
Fabio,
marched,
tranquilo.
but they
Fabio,
were
no te
marching
cambies el stick, Fabio,
in the
no
whole
te
Pero es que
like,
esto es
hey, BT
inexplicable,
Dubs,
bro.
when they
Mira,
come
bro.
back,
Esto es.
this is how we
Esto
support
es
all the people who
inexplicable,
are
bro.
marching on the
O
front
sea, mira,
line.
bro,
And
aquí
we're going
tengo.
to be here doing
Aquí tengo
what
la
we know to do
reencarnación de
best
Carlos.
here.
Aquí
And you
que.
know what? Somebody needs to bail them out of jail
Quédate,
so that
quédate,
we
quédate.
so now we need to be in the
Quédate, quédate,
community,
quédate.
y'all,
Ahí
you
está.
know, getting money
Gracias.
or whatever it is.
Gracias.
So it's like everybody has a position to play. And so play your position like a shortstop, bro. So
Bro.
whoever you are and whatever you
What
do,
the
play
heck?
your
Cállate, por favor,
position.
cállate,
So
cállate.
activism could look like, you know what? I'm not the one that's built to be on the front line, but you know what? My pockets go deep, so I'm gonna support the people on the front line. You know, I'm a comedian. Black joy is a form of activism.
There's always a call for entertainers or celebrities that have the platform
Leave
to
me
do something.
alone.
Why aren't you speaking out?
Leave
I'm not a
me
believer
alone.
in thinking that it's mandatory. Like you said, everyone can be an activist and be activated in different ways. But talk to me about the connection. Talk to me
Ay,
about the
Max.
marginalization in your world and how
Fabio,
you
ponte
feel
la skin
like
del
it
Agustín. Ponte
even
la skin del
inspires
Agustín.
you to say more and use your platform
No,
to
bro. Tengo una
Beneath the
revestida que me
surface of what
persigue.
we do, like
Yeah,
Niecy
that-
Nash says,
métete ahí.
it's the who.
Bro, está ahí para perseguirme. Ya. El ejército de. de Yolo Guerreros. A ver, ya.
El ejército de Yolo
Before
Guerreros.
I let you go, talk to me about the urgency, in your opinion, for people
Pero en
to
serio,
vote,
bro.
our people,
Pero me-
to get out and vote this coming election.
Fabio, es que tienes
Yeah,
la
I mean,
mochila,
Pero que no,
Fabio.
pero que bro, pero que no ves acá.
Guys,
No,
guys,
chica, Fabi.
if you think you're tired now, I'm telling you right now, we cannot take this sitting down. We can't take this jokingly. I understand that it may be hard to figure out who to vote for, but at the end of the day, we got to vote for our families. We got to vote for our legacies. We got to vote for continued progress. We have to vote for upward mobility. We have to
Gané un
vote
estadounidense, no puede
for
ser.
equality in a way that is
Ya,
long
Maxi, que te pego.
lasting. And if we succeeded before,
Aunque me
we can do it
pegas.
again. We talk about the hope. This is the time. This is not the time to give up. This is not the time to pretend a way that we haven't made progress. We have. There's still much more to be done. And you know what? We might have to get to a point where we pass the baton to our children and our children's children, but we still have work to do now for that generation.
Von Orgy, you are everything. You are Molly, but you are not Molly, but I love you so much as Molly on HBO's Insecure. You are an amazing podcaster, Jesus and Joloff. Shout out to Lovey. And then we also have movies. Like you, The World, you're a model, a cover model. Also, wait, don't let me forget your hugely successful stand-up comedy special on HBO. Girl, you're doing it all. And I am so grateful. You are truly the dream, not just the American dream. You're the black girl, brown girl, do it all dream, the immigrant dream, everything. You're a beautiful, beautiful soul. I really, really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Yvonne Orgy, ladies and gentlemen, nothing but the best and excellence personified. Thank you so much, my friend.
I love you so much, Mama. Mwah.
Yeah, la la.
So Atlanta has been one of the hotbeds in terms of political unrest and social injustice. We've seen so much happen in that city, and we've also seen so much come from that city, including one of our very own founding fathers of the civil rights movement, and that's Martin Luther King Jr. But right now, we want to welcome in someone who has used his platform to talk about voting, to talk about racial injustice, and how he's trying to help. Atlanta's very own Russ joins us now on We the People. Russ, I'm not going to fan out and tell you what some of my favorite songs were that I listened to repeat on yours. We're going to get to the topic at hand. So Amazing. We got to talk about, recently you did an interview where you shared your outlook on culture and music. And you also were very candid about the fact that you have a privilege and that it's necessary for you to give back. Tell everybody about what that means.
It's very obvious, I'm white and I'm... been very oh, that sucks for y'all, but anyway, back to what I was doing.
Have you felt that way always, or is it now because of the time of where we are in this country?
I've always had the feeling. I think now it's just obviously elevated. It's a new level, and there's new, it's to the point now where you can't, first of all, you can't not say anything. Second of all, though, I just think saying something isn't enough anymore. I think, if you have the ability to put money back into a culture that you're financially benefiting from, you have the ability to, you should.
It's interesting that you talk about it in that way, because some people do believe that silence is the best way to go, because it's hard to talk race, especially if you're white and you're in the Black culture. People just feel as if they can't talk about it. They feel awkward. They feel as if they don't have the privilege or the voice or the words. How do you find yourself right now in terms of interacting with people when they want to talk to you about social injustice, police brutality? What's going on in this country right now?
Well, first of all, picking and choosing whether you want to be silent or not about race, that's a privilege in and of itself. But no, I mean, I try to just do my best to listen to the Black people around me and the educated Black people I have in my life. So I do my best to not act like I have all the answers for everything, especially in a culture that I'm not from. But that's why when we decided to raise the money for Black Lives Matter organizations, when we raised $500,000, we got on the phone with some of the women who started Black Lives Matter. I got on the phone with Tamika Mallory. I was on the phone with Karen Civil and talking with my friends to make sure the money went to the correct places, and people who really need it. It's just about listening. That's all. It's about listening.
let's talk about that for a moment, because the way I think of activism, for me, it looks very differently. It's not necessarily just protesting on the front lines. I think that's great. But what about being an activist in the way in which you have decided to be one? What inspired you? What did it look like? You said you raised money for Black Lives Matter. What did you do? Walk us through everything that you did and how you find yourself in this moment right now.
So for me, it was 3 years ago. I had like a string of festivals, and I decided that I was going to wear T-shirts with a message on them because I figured, what better, what better time to use a platform than in front of a bunch of people. So one of the T-shirts I wore was, "If you want to change the system, speak up. White silence is pro-racism." The whole thing. And it didn't really it kind of got swept under the rug back then. But when all this stuff started happening again, and it's been happening, police brutality against innocent Black people, I was like, man, I'm not the biggest artist in the world, and I certainly don't have the most white fans in the world, but I got a good amount of people that I can definitely mobilize and turn into some money. And I know they're down for the cause because it's merch, it's a good thing. And I've always been outspoken anyway, and so how am I going to be in Black culture and not be outspoken about racism?
And then I gotta ask you this, because you grew up in Atlanta, so that gives you a heads up, depending for so many people, because you're in the crux of that beautiful Black city where there's so many wonderful Black leaders, home of so much great music and things that culture right now. And we are really, really getting our word out, especially with this platform today, saying that we must use our voice to vote. Talk to me.
La película que iba a dar hoy día, ¿cierto?
Voting for you in this upcoming election.
Únete, Diego, y silencio,
full transparency, I had never
Únete, Diego, y silencio, porque estamos viendo el
because I was one of those people who was like, my vote doesn't matter, and and I don't know, maybe it's because I was younger, maybe it's because I really thought that, or I don't know, but I just think that it's got to, now this is a bit of a privilege to say it's got to a breaking point for me, because obviously it's been past the breaking point for Black people. But I think that as a whole, the young people need to get out and vote, because we're the ones that never show up. You know what I mean? We never show up to vote, but we're the future. So it's like, look, we got to go out there and vote, and then whatever happens, but at least we did our part. You got to do your part.
You're very candid in saying that you just decided to vote. And I think there's a beautiful irony in the fact that you have your fans saying, because of you, I'm voting. Right. And there's something beautiful about that. But I want to know why now for you. Why in this moment is it important for you to vote? And what hit your spirit to say, yes, this is the time to do it?
Honestly, because I think that George Floyd really woke up a lot of people who, including myself, who I was vocal and outspoken about racism. I put it in my lyrics, I put it on T-shirts, I would talk about it in interviews, I was vocal about it. But that video, in that moment, with a lot of other people, words are simply not enough anymore. We gotta do something, whether it's raising money, whether it's voting, or all the above. We got to do something, and I'm ashamed that it took that for me to be like, I need to raise money and I need to vote. It's a shame, and I don't know. I guess it snapped a bunch of people out of it. And even if you were vocal and whatnot, it's time to actually put your money where your mouth is. It's time to go vote. It's time to just stop talking about it and be about it, and it's been time for that. But like I said, I'm ashamed that it took me this long to actually really, really be about it, but I'm here now.
So Russ, we all know that this is going to be your first time voting. Tell me what that experience is going to be like for you in terms of what you're excited about.
I think what it's going to do for me. It's going to let me know that I'm contributing to something bigger than myself, and I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm being about it. Because for so long, and I know I'm not alone with this, but standing on the outside and just screaming about this and that and this should change, and it's like, all right, but did you vote? And so I'm I know it's gonna feel good to know that I played a small role, you know, and that's the problem. I think the mentality of like my vote doesn't matter needs to be changed to my vote, albeit small, does matter. It's a role I'm playing, and if I play my part and you play your part and he and she plays their part, then we make a difference. But you know, it'll feel. I have a feeling it's gonna feel very, very bigger than me. I mean, I think when you realize that giving actually feels better than receiving, that's when you start wanting to do your part and contribute. So, voting is an easy way to give. You know.
Yeah. To whom much is given, much is required, and you have been given a huge platform. We are so grateful for you, Russ. Philanthropist, artist, community activist, first-time voter. We appreciate you for doing this, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, la.
So cities like Atlanta and Chicago have been at the forefront of the discussions, especially now in this country when we're talking about COVID-19 and systemic racism, as well as police brutality and what we can do in this country. Again, we're continuing our conversation, letting you know that your voice is your vote and your vote is your voice. We can change where we are in this country. Currently, I'd like to welcome in Chicago Cubs right fielder Jason Hayward. I appreciate you. I brought in Atlanta and Chicago because I know you grew up in the metropolitan area of Atlanta, more specifically McDonough, let's be technical. And you have been very vocal in terms of what our country's been experiencing. Let's look at the past month and a half, if you will.
Like, this is how we go about doing this. And to me right now, social media, athletes speaking up, entertainers speaking up, like we're trying to do with more.
That's something I thought was so key, because covering sports for so long, I know that it's tough for Black players specifically in Major League Baseball to talk about how they feel. Adam Jones did it in a very eloquent way early on, but there are very few that are vocal. You said you all were afraid. Why use that word, and why were you afraid?
You was afraid because in 2019 there were 68 of us total, and there are 38 teams. There's 25-man roster on each team. There's a 40-man roster, which is on each team as well. And there aren't many of us, so we're outnumbered in that sense, but not always in a negative way when it comes to our teammates and our clubhouse. To get to this point, you have to move a certain way. You got to be careful what you say. You can't ruffle feathers. You can't much like other Black Americans, much like
Habla un poco bajo, así se
having to live through life every day, but to get to the highest level, you gotta button up, you gotta be seen and not heard. So baseball is, like I said, it's time for us to try and speak up and make a difference and show it's okay to do so, because we can't be quiet any longer.
That is a button up, be quiet, be seen but not heard. That is an expression that a lot of Black folks can relate to in whatever aspect of professionalism that they experience, especially if they don't work for themselves. They just feel that. That is also a socialization.
Bro, la cámara de la tipa se ha bugueado.
Especially, like you said, if you want to get to the higher level. And for so long, I felt it bubbling right underneath the surface that so many of us who were in whatever positions we were, who had platforms, were tired of pretending and looking the other way and spending so much time making others comfortable while we were uncomfortable. Do you feel that this is the type of movement that is sustainable, or is it just for a time?
So it takes everyone joining in on the conversation, and right now I feel like more than ever there's little things as possible to distract from bigger issues. We saw on draft day, we saw our president, Theo Epstein, holding up the sign saying Black Lives Matter, and wanting to prove the rest of them be in that. But now we're having those conversations as well. So I definitely think this is sustainable, and it's not always just going to be the popular thing to do. This is something that people want to get right because they know we care.
Jason, you said you think it's sustainable, that what you're seeing, especially with your colleagues in baseball, that this can be something where you're feeling...
Well, first, what I'm doing, Carrie, is joining up with More Than a Vote and joining up with other athletes and entertainers to get that message out and use our platform in that sense as a group. and try to create a brand with this to make it something that's not just about the election coming, make sure that it's about people getting educated for years to come and figure out where to vote and how to vote. We've got people in different areas that cover different demographics and influence different areas of people. And as a baseball player, as a black baseball player, I feel like now, like we talked about, is finding the time to show people that you can use your voice in this profession. You don't have to be afraid. And to me, that can help a kid growing up. He can see me, he can see other guys that were in the video we posted saying, hey, this is what they're standing for. They're speaking up for these things. And it's okay to want to play baseball. It's not lame. It's not something I have to be as afraid of as I was before. So I feel like that's my role in this. I have a younger brother as well. He's 24. He also plays baseball. So I've got to lead by example. I can't just always come up with a good answer that sounds good on TV when I get asked a question on what do we need to do to make changes. So I'm joining up here to make sure that I take action and get educated myself. For one, so many people, I feel like in Atlanta, they're on the move. But when you want to try to make a vote and try and cast your vote, you have to do it by mail. You have to sign up for the absentee ballot. Then you have to get another ballot in return. They have to send it back to you. Well, for me personally, they didn't send that back until it was too late. Right? We didn't get it in the mail to the address that's an Atlanta address at my parents' house. We didn't get that in the mail until it was too late. And then from other friends and family that are still in Georgia right now, I just hear about them being held in lines too long and trying to get out of work. You know how it is for any family, but let alone a black family in the city or in the suburbs trying to take care of the family and trying to provide.
Juan Manuel.
Then you're like, wait a minute.
Ya me aburrí un poco.
It's like, oh, this is not going to happen today, right?
¿Juegas al mundo?
Después, porque
Tengo media hora. ¿Juegas al mundo o no?
Fabio, ¿jugamos al mundo? A mi primo le queda media hora.
No escucho lo que hablas. Espera.
Well, it's interesting that you even bring that up because there's been all these images specifically from Georgia because that's such a battleground where you see people, especially when it came to the primaries, doing whatever it takes. This is real life voter suppression that you're talking about. It's been happening for decades. It's not what you're saying. These examples of sending you your ballot too late after the fact or shutting down the polls at 6 o'clock while people still are in line. That's a real life issue. There needs to be some type of change. And I think that what we're doing right now is fair, but the idea of voter suppression, do you think that is well known, especially with folks, within the generation, your generation?
Why?
I think it's known in our community.
Tío, no te escucho nada, manda mensaje por WhatsApp. Que no escucho nada del micrófono, no sé por qué.
Let people hear about it, let people know what it looks like. And get more people to say, okay, this is going to happen. We have to expect this, and we can no longer make the excuse. We can't say they didn't want it.
Bueno, no se te escucha para nada. Tengo 20 minutos para jugar. ¿Juegas al mundo?
If you look toward the future, what are you most excited about in terms of seeing a change?
I'm excited about how fast the word is traveling. The word is being spread right now. The biggest athletes, the biggest icons, biggest entertainers.
¿Sí o no? O sea, baile sí es sí. Ah, cierto, no puedes bailar. A ver, corre en círculos si quieres. Ok, ya. Te invito. Salud.
We're doing this for the right reasons. We're going to come together. We're going to use drones. We're going to use social medias. I feel like this is a new way.
Yo me voy a saber el mundo. ¿Quieren venir?
You're right about that, and you're right. People are
Mi primo le quedan 20 minutos. Por mí me quedaría.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Right.
Pero voy a preguntar si me puedo quedar 15 minutos más.
Vale.
Yeah, la.
Hey everybody, I am so excited to welcome a friend, a brother, family member, if you will, former colleague, NBA great, sports analyst, philanthropist. He does it all, and he's here to give us his time and his platform to talk about something that is so important, that is voting. Everybody, welcome Jalen Rose to We the People. Talk to me about how important it is for the people who know you and love you and look up to you. Why is it so important that you use your platform to talk about voting?
Initially, we have to get past the stigma of the mental systemic racism that comes with the presidential race, governors, mayors, senators, judges.
Ya, tengo hasta las 7:15.
To believe that our vote does not matter. So usually when we looked up at all of those races and people that were running, not only did they not look like us, we didn't believe they were there to represent our best interests. So therefore, as a collective, we didn't mobilize until Barack Obama, and we felt a sense of hope that finally our country is going to do something that we felt would never happen in our lifetime. And I remember being at the inauguration in 2008. I made sure I was there. And we voted in 2016. We didn't vote, Carrie. We didn't vote. And so many people try to make this political. This is not political. Me telling somebody to vote is like telling somebody to pay taxes. So that's one, getting over the stigma of nobody is going to represent our best interest. And then number two, the reality is that the person that gets the most votes doesn't necessarily win the presidency. That's uncomfortable right there, because that's actually what took place in 2016. The Electoral College chose the president. And if you put all of their pictures up, I'm pretty sure they look a lot more like each other than they look like you and I. How about that? And then the third thing, especially in urban environments, oh man, they create barriers for us, Carrie. It's like you got to jump over the fence, you got to run past the dog, you got to jump on the hood of the car. The lines is 5 hours long. You get up to the poll and they don't work. Elderly people working in the city, while they got the young people who understand technology working in the suburbs. Like, these are all systematic things that try to discourage us from voting. And then finally, we don't have a day off to vote. We have to work. So we don't get a day off. It's gonna be a full day, and I gotta work to pay my bills. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna mail in vote. And you know what you want people to realize, that counts too. So your vote will be counted if you're able to mail it in.
Fabio, te
So
invito.
those are a few things that I hope that we can do and mobilize. And shout to LeBron and his team. Shout to you and everybody involved. We will make a difference.
Well, let's talk about more than a vote. There is a Black collective of athletes, of artists coming together and saying voter suppression is a real deal, especially in the Black community. When you just talked about, I got to work, so I can't go vote. And then when we do get in the booth, just in case we don't have to work, do we know who we're voting for? Not only do we have to vote, we got to be educated. And it's not always even about the man who's in office or the woman who's in office for president. It's about your local elections. It's about the people who are your DAs, your state DAs, like the people who actually make change in your community, who will change police brutality.
Me quedaría, pero quiero jugar con mi prima, bro.
They can help you in stopping police brutality. So talk to me about why you decided to be a part of More Than a Vote and what it actually means.
Well, it means a lot to be involved with such an impressive collective, as you mentioned. And I said this multiple times, and I know it can be uncomfortable when I say it, but a lot of times we have to get to the root of the issue before we find a solution. And the quote was, I wish America loved Black people as much as it loves Black culture. And this collective, by the way, represents in a lot of ways what's encouraging, but also sometimes disappointing about our role as Black people in America. Because we were brought here as labor and to entertain. And we use those vehicles to get paid and move to the suburbs and be the idols of white kids. And so now that we have this collective, I would say sports and entertainment represent the most powerful group of Black men in the United States. I'm talking about money, power, celebrity, the ability to mobilize, community involvement, their leadership, their intellect. And so to have all of us pull it in the same direction at the same time for anything that we're passionate about is going to be a difference maker. but it's definitely going to be a difference maker in the 2020 vote because we're going to make sure we inform everybody that they can let their voice be heard, and failure is not an option.
Jalen, what does voter suppression look like to you?
A perfect example took place recently, Carrie, in Kentucky. It was 6 p.m. at night, and so many people were standing in line enthusiastic to vote. And you know what they did? Locked the doors. And you know what the people did? They continued to bang on the doors, continued to bang on the windows. They continued to let it be known they were not going to leave the premises until they got a chance to vote. And you know what ended up happening? They opened those doors and allowed those people to vote. So do not be discouraged. These barriers show you that it matters, and we're here to help you break through them. The same thing with our platforms and voices, Carrie, because you know what's going to happen. At some point, Breonna Taylor is not going to be trending anymore. People are not going to be protesting anymore. But it's still up to us to keep making sure that our voices get heard, and this is one way to do so.
Right, and that is a form of being activated, being an activist. It doesn't have to be protesting. It doesn't have to look like what you think traditionally activism looks like. It's voting. It's that simple.
We now have to understand, like, this is a critical mass moment for this movement to continue to hold up as much steam for as long as possible. And that's what this collection is going to hopefully allow for that situation to happen.
Jalen, in today's age of technology, it should be easier to vote.
No doubt. It's like we call these devices smartphones, but yet I can't vote from it. All of the things that we do in our lives are in our phones. All of these barriers are things that people will need to overcome in order to create a level of enthusiasm to vote. And again, this is not political. It's your right to do so. And there's so many times where you feel like somebody may have gotten done unjustly in your community. Pay attention to who the judges are, who's running for Senate, mayor, governor. Pay attention who's running for president. And let's make sure in 2020 we make a difference.
Why is more than a vote so important and invaluable in our community right now?
Well, because right now, I think we have an opportunity to let our voices be heard louder than ever. Anytime you see the mobilization of white kids holding Black Lives Matter signs, that means there's a breakthrough. Now, what happens with that breakthrough is the next step. You're going to look down in your email, Carrie. You're going to see all of these companies telling you how they're going to work on their diversity, how they're looking themselves in the mirror. They need to make change, just like in sports, right? You look on the field, on the court, all those black players. The further you get up, it's like altitude or a ladder. It gets thinner and thinner. And so a lot of people talk about the system being broken. I hate to remind people that it's not broken. It was built this way. And one of our ways to help change the system is to vote. So that's why more than a vote is so very important, so we can make sure everybody participates and gives themselves an opportunity to let their voice be heard.
I think it's interesting because you talked about Black men being very powerful in the U.S. if they're athletes and entertainers, because for so long those have been the only avenues traditionally to create wealth. The NBA season comes back. What are your feelings on the season coming back? In the midst of everything that is happening?
I think you'll see players challenging the establishment more. You're going to see them saying, okay, if you have all of these marketing and promotional deals, how many of them are with minorities? How many people are you employing, NBA? What about certain teams? Who do you have as a minority owner? Or what about the candidates that you have for positions of power? NBA players have proven as blacks that they are now movers and shakers in the game. They're now the dog, not the tail. So if they decide not to play, some of the biggest social changes and conversations have taken place in sports that weren't during the game. Colin Kaepernick was before the game. The Ali Summit was a press conference. So they could mobilize if they chose to. But when and if you do play, challenge the league. Black Lives Matter on the jerseys. Continue to make sure that every time people are watching the game, they're also seeing the movement happen.
Jalen, I appreciate you because you are always entertaining and informative at once. I really, truly am looking forward to the NBA season. Thank you for working with More Than a Vote because your voice, your platform, all of it is needed, my friend. Be safe, okay?
Yes, ma'am. I love and appreciate you. One call away always.
Thank you. Love you, brother.
Love you too.
Every conversation that we had today, I hope was helpful for you. I am so grateful to everyone who came on with me to talk about what's going on in our culture and how we need to change. Huge shout out to Jalen Rose, Bun B, Jason Hayward, Yvonne Orgy, and Russ. Their words were inspiring, but also important and invaluable. I hope your phone is full with all the information that we've been able to place in front of you. Again, you need to check out these resources because they are so important because we want you to vote. That is your voice. It is important. We, the people, want you to vote. So go to morethanavote.org, fairfight.com, and whenweallvote.org. Again, thank you so much for joining us and paying attention because this message, again, is invaluable. I'm Carrie Champion for We the People.